Hi, I'm Will Coghill-Behrends. Welcome to Doc Talks. Today I'm joined by Dr. Chris Morphew, DEO of EPLS, and we're going to talk about the job talk. Chris, almost every campus visit has one. Talk to us a little bit about your take on the job talk.
The job talk is something I think that scares a lot of new PhDs and people on the job search. I don't think it needs to, though. I think it's an opportunity for you to strut your stuff and show what your research area is and your ability to convey and communicate about that research. Let's say you're on an interview at a research university campus. They're going to probably schedule an hour and a half for this sort of thing, and a portion of that is going to be available, for question and answers. So the first thing I would think about, and I think one thing that I've seen people get wrong over and over and over again, is timing.
Yeah.
So if they give you an hour, and they tell you that a portion of this hour is going to be for question and answers, then don't have 25 slides and that are going to take you an hour, 15 minutes to get through.
Sure.
That will be a, part of your job talk isn't just about the substance of the job talk, but they're hiring a teacher, they're hiring a colleague, and they want to hire someone who's, has the ability to communicate information and to organize that information in a way so that someone can understand it. And if the first impression of you is that you've gone over your allotted time by 15 minutes and don't leave any room for questions, one could infer some negative things about that. So I would encourage you first and foremost to think about how am I going to best use this time, and how do I make sure, and ask questions. Ask what the job talk is about, because it may be that your assumptions about it are wrong. Maybe they want you to take the whole hour. Maybe this is the kind of place where nobody asks any questions. That's atypical, but maybe this is the place for that. Maybe they want you to talk more about your research methods because of they're hiring a methodologist first and a substantive person second. Find out what the emphasis of the job talk should be on. What can you leave out? What can you leave in? And less is more.
Yeah. Is there a danger, though, you bring up a really good point, is there a danger of asking too many questions? So candidates are sent an itinerary, and they see, hey, at 1 p.m. I'm giving a job talk in building XYZ. Is it perceived as naive if candidates say, who will be in the audience, or how many people should I plan for? Are these the kinds of questions candidates should ask?
No, I think those are very reasonable questions. I think certainly who is the audience? I mean, if the audience includes both students and faculty members, that changes the tone of what you're doing a little bit. If the audience includes people from outside the college and outside the department, then that means that you need to spend a little more time on the front end talking about your research and where it fits within the larger field, and perhaps using less jargon in your slides and in your presentation. I certainly want to know who I'm talking to. I think that's a very reasonable question. I think there's always a danger of asking too many questions. I mean, I wouldn't send the search committee chair my slides ahead of time and ask for edits. I mean, that's too much. But I certainly would say, who am I going to speak to? Should I leave some time for questions? Is the committee more interested in the conceptual framework that I'm using, or the research methods that I'm using?
So that's fair.
I think that's fair. I think that's about as far as I would push it.
Okay.
I think, and if you ask these questions tactfully, I think you're going to be fine. I think the presentation is yours.
Right.
So I don't think you should be asking them about your presentation in terms of the substance of it, but I think asking them about what their expectations and what they want to hear, and what kinds of information that will be most useful for them to make on which to base their decision.
Yeah.
I think those are all very germane questions and very, very, very appropriate.
The campus visit is often followed, probably should be followed, with a thank you email to the folks, or a letter, in fact, maybe a Hallmark card, to the folks with which you've had some sort of interaction. Occasionally, though, there might be some follow-up as a result of your job talk. How can a candidate kind of use that to their advantage, Should they use that to their advantage until the dust has settled from the search? I mean, do you know what I mean? How much interaction should one have?
So if a faculty member or a student emails you...
Asks you a question, and you say, answer the question, but then perhaps, indicate that you'll,
Sure.
get back to them? I mean, is that something that
I think that would be a very useful thing. I think it would be a very strategic thing to do. I
Okay,
think if
interesting.
someone asks you a particular question at the job talk and seems very interested in your response and your research, even forgetting the job for a second, if connecting with colleagues who are interested in your research. Is always a positive thing. I would, I'd get back to my own campus. I'd send an email saying, thanks for attending, thanks for the question. Here's a couple, places you might want to look for the information. Here's an article I did 3 years ago that speaks to some of these questions. You might also look at the work of, John
Very
Smith
good.
and his most recent article in X journal.
Very good.
Yeah.
When individuals give a job talk, they will probably either do a narrative form, describing their research, or they will do, perhaps a slightly looser presentation. Should these forms be accompanied with a handout? Do you think that's pretty much required?
I think I don't think it's required. I'm not much of a handout guy. I always worry about the trees. I probably should worry less about the trees and more about getting jobs. But
Well,
I think here's what: if you're going to do a handout, don't do a handout of every slide in your presentation.
Yeah.
If you're where I've seen handouts be useful in job talks sometimes is where there's more, sometimes where it's information that's not on the slide.
Right.
You hand out a table and you have a couple bullet points on the slide and they say, my research found X, Y, and Z. You give them a table, you give them a regression, something they can hold on to and sort of make sense of and see what your results are, and you can be talking about your results. That's a better idea maybe than putting up a regression or a table on a slide and then saying, which I hate it, and lots of people hate it when they hear this, you can't read this, but here's the results. If they can't read it, then don't put it up. Okay, there's nothing, or skipping through things, saying, well, I have to skip this and this and this because I didn't plan for using my 40 minutes effectively. So I think a handout with information that's too big or voluminous to fit on the slide, but is still necessary to understand what's on the slides, I think that would be a useful use. I wouldn't hand out, they have you can print out the smaller PowerPoint slides. I wouldn't hand out a printout of all my slides, but that may be more of an issue of style than anything else.
Excellent. Chris, it's been great talking to you today about the job talk. Any final capstone advice for us?
Less is more. When we're talking about a 45-minute presentation, which I think is maybe a typical kind of amount of time to spend, rather than having 20 slides, try 10.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.